Taehyung and Jungkook's behavior has left fans confused about whether they are married or not. Most fans believe they are married after seeing various clues in their movements and their return from a honeymoon together in Japan. However, some fans are angry and refuse to accept it. But the facts tell a different story. Stay tuned. This video reflects my personal opinion and interpretation. It is made for entertainment purposes only and does not represent confirmed facts. Without any announcement, without any warning, this moment quietly shook the global scene. Welcome to Vkook. Since I've had the opportunity to narrate Taekook's story and how their relationship evolved into what it is today, I've realized that Taekook has gone through situations that often seem to lack a logical explanation, but which ultimately confirm for me that their relationship has been so real that it's hard to ignore the fact that it's not something just ordinary friends would do. And I'm not referring to on-camera moments or planned conversations, but rather to moments that don't seem to be done for entertainment purposes. They're so genuine and unique that sometimes I wonder why no one questions it or wonders if ordinary friends would do these things. But of course, before we begin, I want to tell you something that I'm sure you'll find interesting. Promotion. Now, one of the first moments that made me realize Taekook was so real was when they had apparently agreed not to reveal that Taehyung was in his room. Probably in another situation they would have said that a certain person was in their room and they would do a live stream together without any problem. But since it was Taehyung, it was funny how they made this situation reveal that Taehyung was staying in Jungkook's room during the tour they were doing at the time. And to confirm that it was Taehyung hiding there, in the middle of the silence Jungkook maintained while reading the fans' comments, Taehyung ended up whispering something in his characteristic tone of voice that revealed what they wanted to hide, as if Taehyung were next to him on the bed and it was obvious that his voice would be perfectly audible on the live stream. This was evident because Jungkook wasn't even speaking at that moment, and only his voice had been exposed to the fans. But what truly made this moment so real for me came at the very instant Jungkook, seemingly uncomfortable knowing that fans would be able to hear Taehyung's voice, began scratching under his lip to cover it up. He then gave a warning, yet somewhat amused, look to the person apparently standing next to him, before even returning his eyes to the camera and saying stay while laughing. After telling that person to stay still, as if warning them to be quiet, Jungkook told the camera that he would be live for 10 minutes and explained how many minutes had already passed. One could infer that Jungkook was telling Taehyung how much longer he would be live so that he would endure it a little longer, knowing that if he extended it as he had on other occasions, Taehyung would probably do more than just whisper when he finally went silent. So, for me, this moment revealed something that I understand even more clearly today. If someone told me I'd ever see Taehyung showing how happy he is when Jungkook is so close, I probably wouldn't believe it. But when Jin was about to say his New Year's wish, Jungkook seemed to step aside. Noticing Taehyung was about to walk right past him, that's when Taehyung placed a hand on Jungkook's waist to stop him, as if he wanted to keep him exactly there, because his intention was to stay behind and have Jungkook remain in that spot in front of him. But when Jungkook gestured for Taehyung to stand between him and Jimin, Taehyung completely ignored him. Instead, it was so sweet to see Taehyung take Jungkook's jacket and gently pull him closer, and Jungkook didn't resist at all. At that moment, Taehyung caught him in his arms and hugged him from behind much tighter than the other members were hugging each other. Between Taehyung and Jungkook, there seemed to be no space at all. It was impossible to distinguish where one ended and the other began. The way Taehyung buried his face in Jungkook's neck, hugging him tightly, conveyed such clear happiness that it was impossible not to notice. There was an intense need in that gesture not to let go, as if he wanted to hold on to him a little longer. At the same time, Jungkook tried to suppress a smile. I pressed my lips together because of how tightly Taehyung held my waist in his arms, clinging to me with a tenderness we often saw. But the fact that it happened when everyone else might have assumed a distance between them made their relationship even more real for me. Because while Jin continued sharing his New Year's wishes, Taehyung remained the same, his posture unchanged. Although the other members weren't hugging each other like that, he didn't seem to mind at all and continued holding Jungkook as if time stood still, with an expression full of affection and calm that only he could show. And when Jin mentioned that they needed a family photo like that for the special space he had in his house, Taehyung, without letting go of Jungkook, pressed even closer and even lifted his legs slightly to get even closer. It was as if closeness wasn't enough and he was looking for any way to stay connected to him, enjoying the warmth Jungkook gave him and how natural it felt to hold him in his arms like that. His smile couldn't fool anyone, and the calm with which Jungkook received that hug, while trying to stabilize a restless Taehyung who still wanted to be closer, was a moment that undoubtedly confirmed everything else, because that was what Taehyung had wanted from the beginning, and in the end he knew how to take advantage of the moment to be that close to Jungkook. But someone tell Taehyung that, no matter how hard he tries, he can't merge with Jungkook, because he seemed to be doing everything possible to achieve it. And the fact that Jungkook was smiling because of how tightly Taehyung was hugging him was quite obvious, because Taehyung had him in his arms and was clinging to him with all his might. No one can say that Taehyung wasn't being very clingy, when it was clear that his possessive attitude increased the more he felt Jungkook so warm and close to him. Now, on November 1st, 2017, a day after Taehyung and Jungkook reunited after spending their vacations separately, one of those situations occurred that, for me, made it very clear how real Taekook was. Putting this moment back into the timeline made everything much clearer. This happened just a few days after they saw each other again. Taehyung had spent his vacation with his family and Jungkook with Jimin, but curiously, they were all in Japan, though each on their own. Furthermore, Jimin had mentioned that Taehyung didn't even answer his calls during that time, which suggested a certain distance. From my perspective, it seemed that Jungkook was somewhat resentful for other reasons, but Taehyung really seemed to be pretending not to notice, and that detail said much more about their relationship than any direct confirmation. Jungkook clearly looked annoyed, and there was an obvious tension between them. At first, Taehyung was interacting quite a bit with Baekhyun from EXO, which seemed to spark Jungkook's jealousy and anger. Jimin also noticed the situation and glanced in his direction just as, following a signal from Jin, Jungkook walked forward with a serious expression, clearly indicating that something was wrong. And although it seemed Jungkook was just looking for an excuse to turn around and see what Taehyung was doing, since he was standing right in front of them, he did so in the most casual way possible, turning completely around as if he only wanted to talk to Jimin. However, his true intentions were clear, and his expression at the end showed that he wasn't happy at all. Jungkook tends to notice everything, especially when someone gets too close to Taehyung. Even though Taehyung was no longer talking to the EXO member, Jungkook kept watching him out of the corner of his eye, observing his every move. At that moment, he saw him interacting closely with Hobie, and more than the closeness itself, it seemed his annoyance had been building for some time, ever since Taehyung had been ignoring him and focusing his attention on other people.